everyone and welcome back to the channel as I take another closer look at an old NECA Predator figure. And this week I'm taking a look at one of the most unusual figures in this lineup because it's so different to anything else they ever produced. And this is the Predator Hound from the Predators movie. Now this movie isn't particularly well regarded, although I have to say I actually really do quite like this one. And this film was released at an interesting time for NECA as they'd started to really find their feet with their Predator line and was starting to experiment with improved articulation, and they started to release some really interesting, more diverse Predators in their collection. And I think it's pretty cool and quite ambitious of NECA to really push the boat out here and do something completely different and do a boar like a hound like a creature to support this line. It's definitely very different to anything else they've produced up to this point, and I think a pretty cool experiment. So if we start off by taking a look at the packaging, of course it does have the Predators line branding, which essentially has the faceplate, the mask of the main Predator with the sort of uppercut jaw, which looks pretty cool. And then of course we have that bubble packaging there. We can see the figure through the window display sort of lifted on his side, which looks a little bit unusual in packaging, to be honest, but nevertheless you could quite happily put this on your wall if you have a hook and it will look pretty cool. And when we flip the packaging to look at the reverse card, we can see that obviously they're advertising the other Predators that are available in this line. So we can see the enhanced, the improved Jungle Hunter and also the Elder Predator, which look absolutely fantastic. Now the overall colours and design of this packaging I think is really bright. I think it's really attractive. I think this is very displayable. We can see a really large image here of the hound itself looking pretty cool. And we have a little bit of text there as well about the hound itself, and it's quite interesting because there's certainly a lot more information here than is contained within the film, because it talks about how these hounds would track down the alien or the xenomorph from the Alien films and would tear them to shreds and not leave anything, no trophies for the Predators. They certainly don't get any of that information in the Predators film itself, but very cool that they're fleshing out the backstory and the history of this character, which I really like. So overall, I think this is really attractive, very colourful, very bright. I think it's very displayable, and I have to say I think the reverse of the sleeve is a little bit less busy than the front of the packaging, and it works pretty well. So removing the figure from the packaging, we can see of course this is very different to anything else we've ever had from NECA up to this point, and is completely unique in terms of all its various bits and pieces. A very distinct look and sculpt. Obviously they've had to do this completely from scratch, nothing has been recycled, and I think there's such a lot of detail here. Obviously this is what NECA are known for, and this is a really good example of how much care and attention they put into their sculpts, because here they're creating a real sense of different flesh tones at the front of the mouth there, the teeth, the gums, the front of the face. Then we have the sort of thicker hide, which is obviously much more of a coarse leather effect, and they've done that through just creating a fantastic sculpt, but then ultimately capitalizing on this with these wonderful paint apps as well. There's lots of different colors running through this figure. There's some hints of red, there's blues, there's browns, and of course there's different texture, different gradients coming through the spikes as well. The spikes are each individual pieces. There's bits of sort of bone popping out through the skin here and there, and there's just such a lot of spikes coming out of the top of the head and on the spine as well, which is just absolutely incredible. There's so much here, and every single piece has been very, very carefully painted and brought to life, and I think they've done an absolutely tremendous job. In particular, I think it's really impressive how they've managed to create the sense or the texture of bone or ivory coming from those spikes around the top of the head there. Again, that's all achieved just through very simple paint apps, washes, and giving that dark wash over it just really enhances it, and it just looks absolutely fantastic. And if we compare it to an image on screen, and of course we only get very, very quick glimpses of the hound face on, they've done an absolutely fantastic job of rendering this into action figure form. It's absolutely incredible. It's quite an achievement, I have to say. Okay, so if we take a look at our articulation, there is a joint at the top of the neck there that allows the head to spin from side to side. This is more of a swivel than a ball joint. There's also another swivel at the top of the neck, so there's 2 points here in the head alone, allowing the wider head to move from side to side. There is also a hinge in the jaw as well, allowing that jaw to drop down, open and close. There's ball joints in the shoulders, allowing the legs to come out to the side a little bit, but also swivel forwards and backwards as well. Now there's a pin swivel at the lower leg, allowing that lower leg to move from side to side, but also hinge forwards and backwards. And then there is a joint at the ankle as well, allowing the foot to hinge forwards and backwards, but also rotate from side to side. The same is true of the reverse, the hind legs as well. They will push out to the side a little bit, in and out, not a huge range of motion, but enough, and they of course will lift forwards and backwards as well. There is another joint at the top of that hind leg as well, allowing that top of that leg to move from side to side, but also hinge forwards and backwards. This is again replicated in the lower hind leg, so again that can move from side to side, but also hinge forwards and backwards, and then we see the same joint in the top of the feet or hooves at the bottom of that leg as well. Now, looking at this figure with a critical eye, the one thing I would point out is that there is a little bit of an unseemly gap between the top of the hind leg and the hide of the back of the creature. So obviously that is very noticeable. That does really stand out quite a lot, and it does ruin the aesthetic a little bit. But other than that, the rest of this figure is pretty tight. You can't really see that much in the way of joints, except perhaps maybe around the top of the neck. But otherwise, it's pretty seamless and pretty smooth, and I think you can overlook those individual gaps because the overall impression is actually pretty solid and quite impressive. Now, as a scale comparison, here he is standing next to a standard Predator figure. As you can see, obviously, he's a lot lower to the ground. He's a very, very different kind of creature all round, but quite impressive. And you can imagine if you picked up 2 or 3 of these, as the Predators have in the film, then this would look really cool on display, especially with just like one Predator in the centre of them, sort of controlling the hounds. This would look absolutely fantastic. So overall, I think they've done a very nice job with this figure. I think NECA should be commended for doing something so completely different, for diversifying this range and thinking outside the box and including a very different kind of alien creature to this world, which is really, really cool. And it is perfect for army building, I suppose. Being able to pick up 2 or 3 of these to really flesh out your collection and have them go in a proper hunting pack would be absolutely fantastic. So a really nicely made figure, very, very carefully sculpted, and of course those wonderful paint apps as well really capitalise on that, making this a really attractive figure to add to the collection. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like, and remember to subscribe as there'll be plenty more videos soon.